right, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of Cannes. Get excited because we have a lot of big interviews today, including the panel that's up next. We have 4 of the biggest leaders in women's sports leagues. And this is a really important and powerful panel because we're also talking about some emerging leagues that are new, and we want them to have awareness amongst this community. So without further ado, let me introduce our panel. We have Amy Scheer, who's the Senior Vice President of the Professional Women's Hockey League. Amy, come and join us. Thank you, Amy. We have Katlyn Gao, who's the CEO and co-founder of League One Volleyball. Katlyn, come on up. We have the intrepid Jessica Berman, Commissioner of the National Women's Soccer League. And then last, but of course certainly not least, Colie Edison, Senior Vice President and Chief Growth Officer of the WNBA. Ladies, thank you for joining us today. We have a ton to talk about. I think the big question is why everyone's here. Like, what's the message that you want this particular community to understand? And I think let's start with you, Amy, because the Professional Women's Hockey League is relatively new. Like, what brings you here? What's your purpose?
So for us, we're 8 months into our existence. We had an incredibly successful first year, but I think to stand up here with these incredible women and the work in the leagues that they do, it's important for us to position ourselves maybe at the same level as the NWSL and the WNBA and where League One Volleyball is going, but very important for the world to see us as a professional women's league that is here for the long term.
And when you want to position yourself as being here for the long term, are there certain brands that you think are going to be able to take you there? Are there certain categories that you're really eyeing that you think are the best endemic fit?
Yeah, I think from a sponsorship category perspective, you want all the big categories, right? You want bank, car, airline, insurance, credit card, and we're working our way there. You want consumer packaged goods, but you want the brand to be the right fit for who we are, and we've got wonderful athletes and accessible players and very community-minded, and we want the brands to feel the same way we do.
What's an example of ways that your league helps these brands feel like they're part of your community?
So we just signed on Scotiabank for our North American banking partner, and a significant portion of what they are paying us and what they are willing to do with us will go back into the community and help build hockey. So how can we get marginalized communities to play the sport of hockey? It's not an easily accessible sport, lots of equipment, ice time not readily available. So how do we give back into the community and get more girls on the ice?
It's incredible to think about how you can do that with a partnership. It's not just a sponsorship.
You need it has to be a partnership.
Absolutely.
It takes 2.
Katlyn, talk to me about the goals for League One Volleyball. You also are trying to spring up something new. Who are you speaking to here?
We're speaking to everyone because this is all about community, and love is built on the concept of community. In fact, because it's the #1 girls sport played in the U.S., we really thought about designing and executing and building this very, very differently. We're the only league that's been building from the youth level up. So it's for the last 5 years, we built the largest club youth volleyball business in the country. And come January, you'll get to see Olympians, 9 out of 12 going to Paris, play in our inaugural season across 6 cities on ESPN. And just, kind of commenting on the idea of partnerships, the audience here for us is well beyond endemic brands. In fact, today we just broke the news that Spanx has become one of our key partners. This is the very first time that they're actually going to be a partner for any type of sport, any type of sponsorship. And for us, that direct overlap
Congrats
of what
on
they
that.
believe.
Yes,
Thank you.
Round of applause for League One, for Love B. Sorry, it's amazing.
Thank you. And we believe in the same thing. We believe in championing women, but not as charity, as someone that, has been building brands for the last 20 plus years. For us is really about coming together with brands that believe in what we do, believe in our model, and believe in delivering the best product for the athletes and for the communities around us.
It's incredible to think about the statement that you just said. We believe in championing women, but not as charity. We've had a lot of athletes on our stage in the past 3 days. Yeah. This is the biggest message that they are driving home. Like, don't support us because it's what you feel like you have to do. Do it because it's good business.
Absolutely. I mean, 90% of all consumer businesses in every single household is done by who? Women. And they start developing that affinity towards any brand at age 12. We have the under 18-year-olds locked. They're literally part of our community. They're wearing jerseys that say love. So when they're practicing side by side with the Olympians who are going to the Olympics, coming back to play in the NBA level volleyball league, they say, well, I can be like that. And the brands that are part of my journey, that's who I'm going to choose when I grow up. And that's really, really important.
12 years old, that's absolutely mind-boggling to think about getting at that young. Jessica, NWSL is not as new, but it has had a renaissance since you've taken over as commissioner. A round of applause for Jessica. And there's no one that would ever question me on that. And so the thing I want to understand from you is, how has your message to this community changed on behalf of NWSL since you've taken over?
Well, I think I knew enough to be dangerous about this world in that I spent my whole career working with for and on behalf of men at the big leagues. And I came over to this world really almost intentionally not wanting to really understand all of the challenges from a business perspective, because there are certain fundamental aspects of the way the sports industry does business, and Amy certainly knows this, that people just don't question, that seem to be questioned in this world. And I have no patience or tolerance for it. So just putting those blinders on and really just applying the simple first principles business questions that we would ask ourselves when we're approaching a partnership that we are now applying. It's the way in which we did our new media deal, which is $250 million over 4 years.
Congratulations, historic.
Which was really just on this question of, like, let us get under the hood and really understand how business decisions are made and bring forward the brands that we know will help you, media partners, to drive your ROI. It's not that hard. We never even had to get into a conversation about doing good or doing well or is this charity. It really was just about, okay, like, what's the model you need in order for this to be an investment you can sell into your board, and we're going to make that a reality for you, because I don't want to get into the, oh, but they've had this really hard life for a very long time and they've been playing in terrible conditions. Like, that story's been told, everybody knows it's true, and at the end of the day, public companies aren't going to be able to make investments with that as the narrative. And we've really been able to take that platform and now bring in Fortune 100 brands. We recently announced Google Pixel, we announced Amazon, we have a couple of other things in the pipeline, and really, I made the effort to come here, in addition to the rosé and the incredible people and the fashion and the people watching, which is very fun. But having the real conversations with brands, especially having been privy to what brands are looking for when I was in the men's leagues, which was all about reaching a younger demographic, people who are tech savvy, and reaching a multicultural audience. That is literally our fan base. Like, we don't have to even work hard. I was having a meeting with a brand earlier who was talking about how hard they work to try to reach Gen Z. I'm like, they're like literally in our stands every single week. We serve up that exact audience, and just figuring out how we triangulate and connect the dots for those brands feels like an incredible opportunity where there's mutuality of a win-win.
Yes. Quick follow-up to you. I feel as though the asset class that is very hot right now is NWSL teams. Like, that's where we're seeing a lot of people start to put their money. When you're having these conversations with brands, is that something they're aware of? Are you educating them on that? Is that helping you get these marketing deals?
Very much so. So I think it builds confidence from a brand perspective when you see that a smart investor whose literal job it is, particularly someone like Sixth Street, for those of you who aren't familiar, they have $70 billion asset under management. They were the first investor to buy a team in our league, and it was a $53 million valuation, and everybody was like, oh my God, do you have daughters? Like, no, I oversee $70 billion and I have a fiduciary duty to my investors. And it was like, okay, if Alan Waxman thinks that he underpaid, which is what he was quoted as saying, which didn't do me any favors with my board, but he was quoted as saying, I underpaid. This is an undervalued asset at $53 million. It doesn't just feed the next sale or other teams that are raising capital for their LPs, but it also feeds conversations with brands, because they're like, they think this is a good investment, so maybe it's a good investment for our brand. What does he see? And then it gives us an opportunity to really take them through our story and help sell in what we know our value proposition is.
It's so interesting to hear these first three women, because there is definitely a sense of education that needs to happen to the market. Colie, the WNBA absolutely still needs to do education. There's still major disparities. But, we had Rita Farrow, the president of Disney, in that exact seat yesterday. She was touting her relationship with the WNBA being 25 years. So it's just a different, type of brand, if you will, different sports league, and that there is a lot more awareness. When you're approaching marketers and brands, what is your ask to them, given that you're not just like a newer league, you're a little bit more established?
Yeah, I think it's about crafting a strategic partnership. So my ask is always, what are your business problems? Lay it out for me, and then let me figure out how the league can help you solve them. So I'm really proud of a partnership we launched this year with Opill. Opill is the first FDA-approved over-the-counter oral contraceptive. And they launched their brand, their product, with the WNBA. And what's important about that is that our Social Justice Council, which has a focus every season around a certain cause, is all about reproductive health equity. And really, it's about access and education to reproductive health information. And so I think they wanted to reach a younger demographic, a very diverse audience, and that's what we bring to the table. We just had our most successful WNBA draft ever.
Congratulations.
Thank you. With over 3.5 million people tuning in, we saw a 96% increase in Black viewership, a 67% increase in Hispanic viewership, and 130% increase in viewership of girls under age 18. And that's a real key demographic.
Wow.
I think it's about building a fan base that's going to grow. What's unique about girls now is they are growing up in a world where there never wasn't a WNBA, right? So they always know, if she looks like me, I can be her. And I think if you can't see it, you can't be it. And so that's really where these generational players, Katlyn, Angel, Camilla, Cameron, who are coming in now, have said, the WNBA has always been part of my life. This is always who I've looked up to. It's not been the men. And I think that's the paradigm shift that's happening. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be too optimistic, because I still deal with brands who want to see, what a CPM looks like and how am I going to get my ROI? And it's very different. Like Sportico just came out with our numbers yesterday, and the average team valuation is $96 million, which we're super proud of. And these are teams that were, under $5 million years ago. And then I still have brands that will say to me, well, I would never spend that with the W. And I know that they would spend it with the NBA. And so I think we sometimes are in an echo chamber. Jess and I talk about this a lot, where outside of this, they still don't really get it. So I would say the brands that get it. And we have a lot of work to still do. And I think, with our next media rights negotiations, we're partnered with the NBA going in. We're really excited about it. And, we anticipate continuing working with Disney, who has been a great partner to us. But there's still work to do. And I see that day in and day out when it comes time to signing these agreements.
On the asset class conversation I was just having with Jessica, the WNBA's rights negotiation, to me, feels like that next big signal of the value of the WNBA. You all have said that you're hoping and expecting to double the rights yearly, I think to about 50 million. So
if that's not the number, I'll just say.
Oh, okay. Well, do we have a number that you want to give us?
No, I don't want to get sued.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So if the number doubles, the expectation would be that the brand investment would double to follow suit. But it sounds like, based off of what you're saying, there does seem to be some sort of a gap there. Do you think it closes with this deal? Do you guys have a marketing plan to be able to jump on the win there and get the brand dollars? If so, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think, listen, we are in our prime of popularity right now. The growth has been spectacular, but this is not an accident. We have been investing in our infrastructure to be prepared for this for a long time. Kathy Engelbert led a outside capital raise of $75 million in 2022, and that has allowed us to invest in human capital. And I know Jess and everybody up here is doing the same thing. That is a big part about how we make our partnerships work. It's great if I can get a multi-million-dollar deal, but if I can't help them activate and actually stand up the sponsorship, which was the problem back in the day, right? We didn't have enough people supporting the partnership, so they said, oh, it's not really working. You know, now, since I've been at the league, we built our own brand partnerships vertical, our own business development vertical, so that we can respond. I don't want to just take your dollars. I want to put your dollars to work, and I think that's going to be the big difference. But I think as far as sponsors are concerned, the new media rights deal will help their brands be seen by more people. And at the end of the day, that's what everybody's looking for.
It's amazing to think about the fact that it's taking a new deal to get it there, right? Like, it seems like this entire women's sports conversation we've been having all week is that marketers need a wake-up call, even though we see it. Amy, a big wake-up call, I think, for the PWHL, for professional women's hockey, definitely, to me, feels like the fact that you're here. Just you being here alone is a signal to the market that you are ready to take commercial partnerships really seriously. How would you describe the audience of PWHL to them, especially because it is a little bit newer? There probably is a knowledge gap there.
There's always going to be a knowledge gap, I feel, but for us, hopefully we're making an offer to a senior director of analytics this week, because it's a position we've not had. But I think when you look in our buildings, you see a little bit of everyone. You see those young girls, the see it to be it, with signs saying, you know, I'm going to be a PW player in 20 years. And you see lots of young boys, because for them to see girls playing hockey now is normal. And so you see lots of young boys, lots of families. You see like women of my age who sit in great appreciation for what they're viewing. So I'd say for us, it's families. We've got young urban professionals and women, I don't want to age myself, but 50 plus. So we've got a little bit of everybody in our buildings, and it's been nice to see the cross-section. I think right now we're 63% women, so probably not as women skewed maybe some people might think.
In terms of the season, I mean, you launched, you know, just less than a year ago.
Yeah.
What are the key takeaways that you've learned that you want to apply moving forward, given the sort of short time frame you've existed this far?
That's a great question. I really haven't stopped much to think.
Let's get you a glass of rosé.
Yeah,
Take a
or
second.
two. Yeah, I feel like we've been spit out of a juggernaut, and I think we've been moving at such a speed, we've been so operationally focused. But I think this year was proof of concept, right? That there's a place and there's an audience for professional women's hockey. We've got a wide audience base, and it's how do we grow outside the hockey community, right? We can't just rely on youth hockey to build our business. We have to get other people in order for us to grow. So that's a big conversation for us off season, is how do we grow outside the rink? And then for partnerships, that there's a real community out there who wants to be involved in growing this sport, especially in Canada, because it's their language. But we're starting to now get equal interest in the US as well. And so for us, the biggest thing is continuing that growth at the youth level. And we were talking a little bit about how much I love your model because of the lifetime value of what these kids bring. So for us, we really need to get into the youth and grow the sport of hockey from the bottom up. And I think that's a big initiative for us as well. So, you know, it's great to see the kids in the building, but we need to double, triple, quadruple that.
I think it's actually really interesting when you think about how quickly a lot of businesses and brands need to see results with CPMs and ROIs, because I think it takes a really strategic and smart and visionary CMO, CEO, leader to say, actually what I care about is the lifetime value of being in this platform and women's sports, what that gives me over time, and how sustainable and reliable that can be and how sticky that can be. So if there's one message to the CMOs and the brands is zoom out and think about what you want to drive over time rather than this quarter, this month, this week.
When you talk to the young women that you're getting involved in your leagues, do they recognize that they're on a lifetime journey? Or do they just think this is a fun thing now? Because you're clearly looking at them as the future of the league. They're looking at it like, oh, this is really fun. I'm just hanging out with my friends. Like, I don't know that they understand the weight that they are carrying as the next generation of building volleyball.
I don't think this is something that you can, I mean, for all of us who are moms, you can't really tell a 10-year-old or 12-year-old to say, this is what you should think, right? But I think it comes from them being immersed and experiencing. So that's why we've intentionally put these amazing women in the actual practice facilities to share with the youth, because I think that's the level of community and that's the level of fandom and direct interaction that we want them to have, in addition to every single one of these 14,000 athletes that go on every single weekend to these tournaments with tens and thousands of other families. They have love on their jerseys. And as soon as they see these women on ESPN and other platforms to come in January, they see that connection, they feel it in real life as well. It has to come from directions as opposed to just one, and certainly not being told.
Go ahead, Amy.
I'll say, and we've built this amazing sign culture. All these kids come in with signs, and I'd say 3/4 of the signs are about "I will be a future PWHL player." And then the best sign I think I ever saw was a woman in about 35, 36, and she had a sign that said, "If I had known this would be here, I would have tried harder." And so you've got this juxtaposition of these little kids and little girls who can't wait to play, maybe professional hockey, and then the older woman who sort of missed the boat, which bums you out. But I think they understand that they could now have a home playing the sport they love.
Yeah, I mean, we can create a middle-aged hockey league. It's not too late. Okay, we have just...
I think you should put that on a shirt. We put almost everything else on a shirt. Maybe that's not.
Love that. Sign culture. We have time for just one more question, so I just want to do a quick round robin. Can you each provide an example to the marketers in this audience of a partnership that works for your league that has been really, really effective? And that way, if they are trying to partner with you, they can look at what might be effective. Colie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely just our Changemakers platform. Our Changemakers are a collective of purpose-driven organizations who work together to empower women and underrepresented groups through sport. They are our largest investors. It's AT&T, Nike, Google, CarMax, Deloitte, and US Bank. And the way that it works is that they take a player-first approach. How can they increase the player experience? So whether that's US Bank's financial literacy program, Google, who's all about media visibility and making sure that our postseason is on ESPN, Nike, our outfitters, Deloitte, who helped redo our app, CarMax, who does tip-off and is all about brand building, and I'm sure AT&T, which is the She's Connected program. Everybody has a phone. Like, maybe that's not a big deal to NFL players, but all of our WNBA players get an AT&T phone and a service. And what this does, it goes beyond just the logo slap and the marketing. It's a two-way relationship, and I think it's the foundation for how we should think about partnerships in sports.
Incredible example. Jess?
Yeah, I'll give a maybe slightly different example than the kinds we've been talking about, which is our partnership with CarMax. One of the things we did with them is really help deliver the value of our partnership to their employees. So for brands that are tens of thousands of people, what we did was actually convene all their senior leaders and facilitate a thought leadership event, which was internally focused. So we talk about ROI in terms of selling products or selling services or brand building, but what value does it provide for millennials, Gen Z employees to know that your employer is investing in women? It's tremendous. The ROI is tremendous. And the survey they did afterwards with their employees was that I think it was they were 5 times more likely to stay at the company, to want to continue to support anything that CarMax asked them to do, and the affinity that created internally. So that's mostly relevant for big companies that have tens of thousands of employees, but we all know how hard it is in post-COVID world to recruit and retain good talent. It's probably one of the biggest challenges facing corporate America today. And the way it makes people feel to work for a brand that is doing good work and investing in the future is tremendous.
It's amazing. And I wouldn't have thought about CarMax. Like, that's not the brand that I thought would be endemic. We have just a little bit of time, Katlyn, and then Amy.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. We just announced literally last week that we have signed a multi-million, multi-season partnership with Adidas.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah,
wow.
we, out of the gates, 5 years ago, we had this hypothesis that if we built this ecosystem, starting with youth and go all the way to the best pros of pros, that we would attract brands, endemic or not, who wants to activate from the youth up. And that's exactly what Adidas is doing. In addition to being in the kit for both the youth and the pro, we're really redefining what it's like to be a partner, a uniform partner. We're redesigning the uniforms, we're designing the shoes. There's so many things that we're doing together that's really about purpose and profit. And every single dollar that they're giving us, because it is a cash deal, a percentage of it goes to the Love Foundation. What does that do? It helps underserved audiences, underserved athletes to actually participate in club because it gets expensive. And we want more and more people to come into the sport to feel belonging to a sport that's really based on community.
Amy.
Similar story. So we signed Bauer as our official jersey partner and apparel partner. And so they pay a royalty for part of that. And so what we're doing is we're actually taking less money on the royalty front and licensing front and putting a percentage of that back into growing the game of hockey, and they will match that as well. So we've talked about should every partner that we bring in help grow the sport because it's critical for us. So we're taking less money, Bauer's paying more money, and it's all going back into the community to help grow the business.
Congratulations, all four of you. Incredible partnerships. Let's just review some of the things we learned. Amy, 8 months in, but you are here for the long term. That is your big thing. Scotiabank, big time partner that you're helping build for some of the under-recognized communities. Katlyn, the ground-up approach, bottom-up approach is super interesting in getting young women involved in volleyball for life, the lifetime value. I did not know that volleyball was the most popular sport for young women in America, for women in America. Jess, I think you said you know enough to be dangerous. And a lot of that comes from your experience working in men's sports. But it's so funny that you said they're looking for three things: tech-savvy consumers, diverse consumers, young consumers, audience. And that's all the three things that the NWSL has. Colie, we are anxiously awaiting. I have an alert every day on my calendar to check for the WNBA and NBA right negotiations. And we hope that you get more than double and that those rates are really big. I think it's really important that you said that, there's still a lot of people who don't get it, because that's why we are here doing everything that we are doing with the Women's Sports House. You raised $75 million in 2022 to invest in human capital, people who can help make these partnerships come alive. I urge everyone to check out #SignCulture at the Professional Women's Hockey League. I love that you said that it really is a family league. That's special and that's different. And then, shout out to Changemakers, CarMax, Bauer, and Adidas for helping to power these brands. Thank you, everyone. Round of applause for our audience and our panels.